Decided to take some might off for the pain, bleed freely, and just run.
MIA drummer and feminist Madame Gandhi ran the London Marathon. She decided to bleed freely.
Stigma is one of the most effective forms of oppression. Why? Because it denies us the vocabulary to talk comfortably and confidently about our own bodies.
One of the coolest things about having a period is that anyone around the world who has one can relate.
I always think about feminism in two ways. I think there's be the change feminism, and I think there's activism feminism. I'm not here to dictate the art of anybody else, but I am here to offer an alternative for women who want to see three-dimensional constructions of themselves represented in the media and in music today.
If you have that vision, just keep going, okay? Just keep going.
They say that if you can see it, you can be it. If people don't have examples of what it looks like to be successful at something, more often than not, they won't even try. I want to live in a world where young women and people of all gender identities feel free in their skin. And I will not stop until the next generation of women feel that they can do whatever it is that they want, that they don't have to dim their light to accommodate somebody else. We have to have alternative, badass, talented musicians out there, artists, activists, thinkers, innovators, creators, business leaders who are pushing the boundaries and making contributions by their very existence as women. Own your voice, don't be afraid. The future is female.
Hi everyone. Wow, that was incredibly inspiring. My name is Munira Khalif, and I'm this year's U.S. Youth Observer to the United Nations. And it was created in partnership. It was created in partnership between the U.S. State Department and the United Nations Association of the U.S. And the idea was that the voices of American youth must be heard at global policy discussions and events at the United Nations. So really, I'm here today to urge everyone in this room and everyone who has participated in this event to remember the importance of youth engagement. That when we are talking about the very issues that affect young people, we must ensure that their voices are being heard and that they're at the table when decisions that affect them are being made. And then secondly, I wanted to touch on the importance of investing in the education of young people and specifically young girls. I am a Somali American, a first-generation Somali American, and I am living proof of what it means when you educate a girl. My grandfather was innovative and had the foresight of realizing the importance of educating my mother. And as a result, because of that ripple effect, I'm standing here today as an education activist, working tirelessly to make sure that young girls, regardless of where they are born, have access to education. And so it is my privilege to be here to introduce artist Madame Gandhi and Angela Jiang from Girl Up. Thank you.
Hi. Come closer to me.
What an honor and a privilege to be here interviewing Madame Gandhi. She is an amazing musician and inspiring activist. So let's just get on into it, right? So I work for Girl Up. So Girl Up has always dedicated itself to empowering women and creating spaces. But I think a really important aspect of this is females creating space for other females. So what do you think is the ideal environment and the ideal setting for empowerment that is created by musicians and activists like you?
You're a genius. This is a very good first question. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Good? This is so cool. I just got back from a 2-week tour all throughout the South. We started in New Orleans and worked our way up, and I got in last night. So it's really, really special to kind of end that 2 weeks here with you today. In terms of holding space, I think a lot about how I can fight to create a platform for my work such that then I'm the gatekeeper to put whomever I want on my own stage. So, for example, the clothing I wear on stage, all female made. This is by an incredible artist out in LA. Her work is under Art Addict. When I hire musicians, all women or female identifying people. When we make music videos, we hire all women. A lot of times, unless you're intentional, finding marginalized groups who are extremely talented, but people don't think to use them, women, like DPs, videographers, everyone. If we don't use them, then I think we continue the cycles of excluding women in marginalized communities. So I'm trying to build a platform for my work with my music, with my education, with my speaking, such that I have the choice to put whomever I want on my stage and combat all the sexism that exists in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's so inspiring, especially as like an aspiring activist. So obviously you're an artist, you're an amazing musician. I think that every activist movement is accompanied by like a great like piece of music or a movement of music or art, like for example, like Nina Simone, Strange Fruit, like Keith Haring, Ai Weiwei. If you were, besides yourself, because you're amazing, but this era of activism, do you think there's a specific artist that you think really embodies the soul of 21st century activism and empowerment?
What a great question. I think I'm trying to be part of that up and coming class. I grew up listening to Fela Kuti from Nigeria, the Spice Girls. I mean, I was an 8-year-old. My first entry point really into mainstream feminism was by watching the Spice Girls and feeling like myself was self-actualized. I wrote a song last year that was inspired by the slogan, "The future is female," which went viral on the Spotify charts during the women's movement back in January. If I think of someone today, I think I'd probably still give that credit to MIA. I like also seeing that Beyonce is like taking more of a feminist perspective. I thought when she did Lemonade last year, it really took her to the next level. I felt like she had kind of played the game and said, I'm going to be a classic sort of pop star in a more sexual way. And then she was like, cool, I have all the money and all the power and my own independent, entity to be able to produce what I want. And she made Lemonade, which commented on vulnerability, which commented on female sexuality, which commented on deep love and partnership, which commented on family, on motherhood, on multi-generational feminism, on black feminism, on southern feminism, which we really hadn't seen in the mainstream before. So I would give it to probably MIA and Beyonce.
Those are two of like my favorite artists of all time. So like, I totally agree. Yeah, give a round of applause to those artists, female artists. So I know that you are like very experienced in terms of like academia. You went to Georgetown, Harvard Business School. You're very like obviously intelligent, right? So what made you choose art and music over this path that's like kind of carved out for people that, education and like higher in terms of like actual education is the path to success? What made you decide that art was your path, and what hurdles did you face during that?
That's such a wonderful question. I grew up to two fairly traditional Indian parents who understood academia as success. And so, I did that in the beginning because I thought that was right. But when I would think about the things that would inspire me, it was always music. It was watching someone on stage connect to me and my emotions. And music speaks to the emotions, as opposed to your cerebral self. And I feel like it's more effective in combating, the social inequality that we see, because artists can compel us on a different plane to take action. I think that's the reason why music has been so important to me. I think, moreover, each of us have a sphere of influence, whether it's our family, our coworkers, our friends, our social media following. We have our own sphere of influence. And I really do think that if each of us just focused on how to make the world a better place and showed that example for their own sphere of influence, that's how we create global change. And I will always be drumming, and I will always be singing and dancing and producing music, so why not harness what I would be doing anyway when no one's watching to make the world a better place and combat the social injustice that I see? So that's the reason why I chose music.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, and speaking of spheres of influence, I know that we're both pretty young people, and it's really important that like our generation get into this movement. So it's kind of intimidating going into this kind of blind, like saying that activism will be my path. But you have carved out the space in music to like promote activism. Do you have any advice for aspiring people wanting to make change in the world and seeing the path as like cloudy, unclear?
Absolutely. You know, I think one of the most amazing things is social media. I think the value of social media has informed activism and fourth wave feminism in a way we've never seen before in the past couple years. I see the social media tool as a tool in two ways, and that's how I think the young people can get involved in the best way. The first is for organizing. One of my dear friends, Aya Shebi, who runs the Africa Youth Movement out in Tunisia, always says the revolution doesn't happen online, it happens offline. But social media is a way to be able to get an agenda going, to get a group going, to give instruction, and to build empathy. And so I think young people can use their social media and their following to not only explain why an issue is so important to them, but to teach others how exactly to take action, whether it's to march in the women's movement or whether it's to share an article that can educate somebody. And the second thing I think that social media is really valuable is to own our own narrative. For so long, women have been written out of history. We've been excluded because we were not in control of our own narrative. A lot of times when I travel internationally, when I go to India, parts of Africa, I learn that it's really the Western narrative that's controlled and taught, and we don't get to hear what's actually going on the ground. When I ran the London Marathon bleeding freely, I took every news, journalist, interview outlet I could, whether it was a 10-second conversation or an hour conversation. Because I wanted to control the narrative about women's bodies, about my experience at that marathon course, and why I think we have to break the stigma surrounding women's reproductive health. And so that is the way that I think young people can get involved.
That's really awesome. Like, I truly think that like working through systems that have been put in front of us, like social media, is really how we can get involved. Do you think that along with like good things, good qualities about social media, that it can be used in harmful ways, especially in terms of like
bullying?
Yeah, bullying, even like I know the idea of the echo chamber is really like coming forward. So would you like to say a couple words about like how to use social media responsibly to promote sustainability in terms of like whatever you're interested in, whether it be like feminism or like the environment?
Absolutely.
Whatever.
I think there's a lot of different ways I can answer your question, and I'd love to answer it in a very specific way, which is that I think still, unfortunately, young women are valued for our looks, and for our beauty, instead of our skill sets, for our sex and sexuality, instead of our skill sets. And young men are valued for our skill set, which then actually has also a negative connotation, because then men end up being valued for their money in this sort of society we live in. It's looks and money. And both are quite dark because they're constructs, they're not reality. We should be able to choose how we want to be valued. And for that reason, I think social media has the potential to cause harm because it reinforces the notion that women are valued for our looks. The amount of social media that's there, that's vanity, everything is seen through a filter, everything is washed through beauty, it reinforces young girls that that's what they have to put their time and effort into. So imagine if you give one gender group 24 hours in a day and you give another gender group 24 hours in a day, but one gender is taught to disproportionately spend an exorbitant amount of time on their hair, on their looks, on their makeup, even if it's a couple extra hours each week, shaving our legs, whatever it is that we have to do, that's time taken away from me being a better drummer, from me being a better programmer, from me being a better business leader, a better thinker, a better innovator. And so that is something that I really believe social media can hold us back. The positive, though, is that we, again, as I mentioned before, have the ability to control that narrative. If you open up my Instagram right now, Madame Gandhi, you will see me programming. You will see me looking on a stage playing the drums. You'll see me at, in the UN Foundation. I try my best to show an alternative. We might want to be beautiful one day, but we also might want to be just working. I have a song called Top Knot Turn Up. It's like, put your hair up in a bun and get some work done. Like, I'm not here to look beautiful for you. I'm here to get some work done, So that's the idea behind Top Knot Turn Up and how I do think social media can be used for good.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I think we're almost out of time, but I just want to thank you again for inspiring women all over the world, and especially young girls, which is the demographic.
Thank you for being so young. She's 16 years old. 16 years old. I love you. Oh, I love you so much.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, and you're amazing.
Thank you. The future is female. Love. Thank you.